Okay, feeling very compelled to do a video right now. It's late, but I'm gonna do it, and Elroy didn't want to be alone, so he's joining me too. I have been having this recurring theme in my life. I mean, always, but it's been kind of bothering me, almost feeling like it's not so much of a blessing, but I don't ever want to be ungrateful for my gift of being able to help people. But it also has been causing me a lot of discomfort and annoyance lately. And I haven't been practicing a lot of self-discipline with other areas of my life for myself that keep me healthy and happy, because I've just been feeling so drained of energy, and like I'm just giving away all my energy to people that I feel need it or are asking for it, and this is kind of what it does. And so I'm gonna share with you, I guess, my perspective on it at this point. I was at yoga the other day and just feeling really annoyed with everything lately. So I asked, or just my intention, which is me in my interpretation asking the universe for an answer, was to just be able to learn the lesson of humility that I need to learn right now at this point. Humility, I think, is something that everybody needs, but not a lot of people have. And if you're not really sure what humility is, it's thinking less of yourself. Well, not really. It's not thinking less of yourself. It's thinking of yourself less. So not really being so self-centered and just constantly worrying about what you're benefiting from it, and taking yourself out of the equation long enough to be able to see the big picture and not necessarily how it's impacting you and what you're gonna not be getting out of it or getting out of it. Take yourself out of the equation. Humility is what makes us humble. So if you say someone is humble, it's because they have humility. I've done a presentation on that for my group exchange stuff, so maybe I'll get to that eventually, but I'm not going to look through that right now because I'm having a pretty intense personal experience with it at the moment. In the past couple of months, if you've watched these videos, you understand that there was two people really close to me that were pulling away, looking at me differently. I feel like I'm growing, and in my opinion, and it's not to say that it's right or it's wrong, it just is. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion. I believe that I am growing, and when we grow, I always say growing up is losing friends. Losing friends is growing up, however you want to look at it. And it doesn't always have to be that way, but that's something that we need to be prepared for and willing to accept if it happens, or when it happens, because it does. And so part of the growth process, is essentially growing out of relationships that you might have had forever. They might be family. In this case, they are. In my case, they are. And so we have to kind of be willing to accept that, or at least accept the strain on the relationship until you and that other person are in a place where you can talk about it and mend it and move forward, whether that's together or separate. That's to be determined. And neither one is right or wrong. It just is. And so it's just kind of come to my attention today through a pretty big with my oldest sister. I hate to I'm not trying to call people out here, but I need you guys watching this to understand that these aren't just close people to me. They're actually family. Because this is what it looks like. This is why it's so difficult to grow. And to me, boundary setting is part of growth, and that's how you know you're growing, when you're readjusting your boundaries to fit the new relationship that has formed, the growth. It's like I'm thinking of a lobster right now breaking out of their shell. They can't stay in the same shell forever. They have to shed that shell because they grow too big for it, and they break it, and they, grow another one. So this is kind of what that looks like and feels like. And you feel very vulnerable, or I'll speak for myself, I feel very vulnerable in this process of growth, because I want to make sure that I'm being open to everything and anything, the good, the bad, the ugly, the indifferent. And so something that happens when you set boundaries with people, they don't like it, which is exactly why it's so damn difficult to do, because especially if you haven't established boundaries and you kind of just never really had that talk, and you just expect and assume the other person is just going to know what you want and what you don't want, and what you expect and what you don't expect from them, just by doing like the dance of the relationship as it unfolds. You don't really have to talk about these things, but that's the missed mark. We should talk about these things. We need to talk about these things. It's important, it's necessary, it's very healthy. And so trying to set boundaries after the relationship has already been established a certain way, essentially those covert boundaries, if you will, the unspoken boundaries, are the rules of the relationship, are the way that it runs, the expectations we have from ourselves and from other people, and from what other people expect from us, the assumptions about behaviors and what you're going to say. These are all kind of, in a sense, boundaries. They are and they aren't, but I'll try to make this more clear. So because I am a helper, I'm a therapist, I'm a guide, I've always been that kind of person that people come to talk to, and so it's expected of me to be helpful and to be available and to listen. And so with that comes, I guess, what I would call people's ignorance to me needing my own time and my own help. And it also, strangely enough, comes with the dynamic that I am put on a pedestal of self-righteousness. And I'm not saying that I don't have any role in that, because the way that I choose to help people, and be available for everybody and anybody that needs to be helped, also promotes that view of people, because I always have something to say. I've always got, I don't really necessarily call it advice to give, but in a sense, I guess it is. I don't like to tell people what to do, because then they count on me for all their answers and they don't help themselves. And then if it works, it's my fault and I need to give them another right answer. And if it doesn't work, then it's also my fault, and they don't take any personal responsibility for their own role in whatever happened. And so it's this very fine juggling line, that I need to make sure that I maintain and I'm vigilant of, so that I don't just get lost in other people's shit, and I make sure I know where mine begins and ends and where theirs begins and ends. And a lot of people don't really do that. We're all enmeshed. We turn towards, lack of boundaries essentially creates a people-pleasing dynamic with yourself and with other people. Sorry, I'm in my head a lot right now, so I'm trying to spit this out in a pretty productive way. So I'll just say the quote that I thought of tonight that keeps coming to mind right now. There's a very fine line between helping and enabling, and it becomes enabling when it no longer feels good to help. And so that's at the point in time when you know that it's necessary to set a boundary and to change the course of the relationship, to change the way that the way that it's working or not working, to change the entire dynamic. And when we do that, we get a lot of pushback from the people that we're setting a boundary with, because it requires them to change the way that they're talking to us and interacting with us and behaving. And, what used to fly no longer flies. And so people give a lot of pushback when we set a boundary, and they try to make you feel bad for setting a boundary. They try to make you, think, well, in my case, I'll speak for myself. They call me self-righteous. They call me pushy. They call me, well, for lack of a better word, which is what she said tonight, you think you're God. I never said that. Never said anything that she claimed I am. That's her own perspective. But because I did decide to set a boundary and not continue to enable her to just complain, she did not like it. And I got the wrath of that. And what that looks like is a lot of her spewing her misunderstanding out. And I'm hoping that you guys can relate in your own sense of your relationships in your life with what I'm talking about. People try to make you take away the boundary that you just set because they don't want to change their behavior or the way that they're talking to you or the dynamic of life in general. It means that they can no longer have the same relationship with you because you are setting a boundary, a rule. That this is not something you're not going to tolerate anymore. Boundaries are the rules of relationships. It's what teaches people how to treat us. It's how we treat ourselves. It's the rules that we govern our own life with. If I say I'm going to do something, it's up to me to do it. It's not up to me to wait for somebody else to tell me or remind me that I said I was going to do this thing. Personal responsibility. We all have a personal responsibility to set the rules of our life, parent our own inner child, and maintain a healthy lifestyle, the one that works for us, that we won't get burnout on, or that we won't feel like we need to run away from or to numb from with drugs or alcohol. All these kind of things we do. This is probably going all over the place and might not make a lot of sense, but I've been doing some inner child work because in yoga, when I asked for, the lesson in humility, it's no surprise that I got the answer right away, because you get what you ask for. It's pretty powerful if you really ask with intention and intentional energy, direct energy. And you don't know what the answer is going to be. You just have to be open to it, or following the cues or the clues of the life's happenings in order to lead you to it. And so when I had come home from yoga after asking for a lesson in humility, I wanted to read, and not any of the books that I'm currently reading right now. I found myself compelled and drawn to my bookshelf, and I picked up this wonderful book. It's actually really, really good. And I got rid of a lot of books a while ago, and for some reason I held on to this book, even though I haven't used it as much as I could have, should have, whatever. And so I was drawn to that. And so I've been doing that kind of a lot today. And I recognize that my inner child feels like if I'm too quiet, that I will be put in the shadow, just because that was my upbringing. I have two older sisters, and one that's an outstanding athlete, and I'm only a year younger than her, and I always kind of felt like I lived in her shadow, and I never really seemed to mind because I'm quiet by nature, or at least I was quiet by nature, and I was okay with that. It didn't really bother me, but at this point in time, I understand that if I'm not verbally helping or outwardly helping somebody, that I feel like maybe I will be put in the shadow or forgotten. And so I make myself available, maybe too available to people to talk and to listen. And I found myself having those experiences in the past 2 weeks, and they've been annoying me and dragging me down and draining my energy, because I'm out somewhere, I'm doing something, and people just feel compelled to come up to me and just start spewing their stuff that they need to get off their chest and vent and la la la, and I justify not setting a boundary and saying, look, I'm here to enjoy myself. I'm happy to help you on another time, but not right now, because my own inner child, one, doesn't want to be put in the shadows any longer. And also my ego, in the sense that I do feel like I'm capable of helping anybody and everybody, but my work is to learn that I can also help people by being silent, by not helping. not taking action. And that is something that we did learn in therapy school, and it kind of makes me laugh because I always had an issue with being quiet in the therapy room. I like silence. I love silence actually when I'm with myself. But if somebody else is there and they're talking and they're asking for feedback or they're expecting feedback, I feel very compelled to give it. And that's part of, in my opinion, my ego believing that I can and I am fully capable of helping anybody and everybody that comes to me, and that whatever I say will be helpful. And so, I don't just go around seeking people out for, free therapy, but they seem to find me, and I have to ask myself, what am I doing to continue to attract that in my life? And that is what I've come to understand, is a lack of setting these boundaries that I didn't even realize I needed to set, or that were necessary for me to set, to be able to be, I don't want to say happy, but I guess it's the only word that's coming to my brain right now. Happy every day in my life, because if I'm giving too much energy out to other people, I don't have any left for myself. And I've really been feeling that the past couple of weeks, just so drained, not really wanting to work out, really undisciplined with my snack attacks, and just feeling very sluggish and bleh. And just, life doesn't stop, so it's easy to just keep going on to the next thing, but not, taking myself into consideration enough to ask myself where I need to make a change or set a boundary. And so today, after that blow up, after I got yelled at and told that I need to stop shoving my views down other people's throats, I don't believe that I do that, but we all don't believe we do anything wrong. In those senses of the words, our intention is to help. And so my solution was to set a boundary when she did text me after she stormed out and asked me if she could come over and talk about it on the weekend. And I chose to say no, because I realized that I would only be enabling her to continue to blow up, run away, and then expect me to be available to help when she's ready to talk again. I was ready to talk today, but she left. And so that's for me, my own belief. I'm not one to, if you hang up on me, I'm not going to answer the phone if you call me back. If you leave, don't come back. I'm all about sitting through it, getting through the uncomfortability. And for me, that's respecting yourself as well as the other person and the relationship as a whole. So if you're one of those people that, blow up and hang up or walk away or slam the door or drive off or whatever, use, name call, try to shut people down, ask yourself what you can do differently so that you can learn the lesson you need to learn in that moment, because that is happening to teach you something that's going to benefit you in the long term. It's going to help you grow interpersonally. And so in doing that, having that experience today, I had the opportunity tonight to set the boundary that I have come to the conclusion of by doing a little bit of inner child work earlier today, that I can help. But it doesn't always look the way that I think it will look, or that I think it should look. And sometimes helping people looks like not helping them, if that makes sense. I'll say it again. There's a fine line between helping and enabling, and it becomes enabling when it no longer feels good to help. I'm sure I'll do another video on this tomorrow. Right now I'm really tired and I wanted to get this off my chest. I was going to make this video earlier, but I was really fired up, and doing things in anger isn't always the best. And I'm glad Elroy's here. I hope this was helpful for anybody, somebody, even if it's not, it was helpful for me. it's really tough to set boundaries, which is why not a lot of people do it. If it was easy, everybody would do it. Everybody would have healthy boundaries. And please understand that boundaries are the rules of the relationship. They are what teach you what your next move is, or what you're willing to accept or not accept for yourself. If you let yourself get away with your own shit, you're going to let other people get away with all kinds of shit. So practice, the rules of your life in your own life before you try to start telling people what to do and how to do it and what you expect of them, and making assumptions, because it's very easy for them to, to call you out on your shit as well. And the more that we find fault in others is really just us avoiding the reality of our own faults, and refusing to do the work. If we're so easily able to pick it out in people, it's because we have it in ourselves and it's familiar to us in our own way. And we don't ever want to believe that we have these things that other people have that we don't like, but we wouldn't be able to recognize it if we didn't know what it was. And we know what it is because we do it and we have it. And it looks different. It doesn't always look the same, but I can assure you that it's there. Otherwise, you wouldn't know what to call it. I'm going to stop this here and do this again tomorrow. Thanks for listening.